I, a 27-year-old woman, got married just 2 weeks ago. I poured my heart and soul into planning the entire event by myself, and it was an enormous success. I received a lot of praise from my guests for how beautiful and perfect everything looked. It was heartwarming to hear such kind words about my hard work. However, my stepsister, who is 26, couldn't stand the attention I was receiving. She began spreading lies, telling everyone that I had stolen my wedding ideas from her. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by this. My stepsister has always been jealous of me, but it was still frustrating. Her jealousy and pettiness had always been a constant nuisance in my life. Unfortunately, some of my family members have big mouths and started questioning whether I had really stolen my stepsister's ideas, which was deeply unfair. I hadn't copied anything from her, and it hurt that people even entertained the idea. My stepsister has always had a history of lying to make herself look better, and, frankly, I had reached my limit. My mother married her father when we were both 16, and we've hated each other ever since. In the beginning, I genuinely tried to be her friend, but she rejected every attempt I made. Instead, she turned everything into a competition, which got under my skin. One notable instance happened during high school, when she spread a nasty rumor about me. I had made the cheerleading squad, but she didn't, so she retaliated by telling everyone that I had hit on her boyfriend. For almost a month, I was subjected to relentless bullying from other girls, with only a few standing by my side. This is the kind of person my stepsister is. She'll do anything to bring me down just to make herself feel better. For years, I let things slide because I knew her actions were driven by her desire to get under my skin, and I believed that if I didn't react, she wouldn't get the satisfaction she craved. However, this time was different. I had spent weeks meticulously planning my wedding. It was my special day, something I had dreamed of and worked hard for. She couldn't simply swoop in and undermine everything I'd done. It was too much. I knew it might be petty, but I decided to confront her after I found out that she'd been telling people that I had stolen her ideas. I called her, demanding that she stop spreading lies, but she just laughed at me. She called me a sore loser and hung up. That was it, I had enough. I was going to expose her and her husband for the cheaters and liars they really were. For context, her current husband, a 30-year-old man, was actually my boyfriend when I was 23. Back then, I lived with my parents and stepsister because I was trying to save money to move out. That's when I met my ex at work, and I fell for him almost instantly. He seemed perfect, but he insisted on keeping our relationship a secret, even from my friends. Looking back, that should have been a huge red flag. After dating for about 2 months, I decided it was time for him to meet my family. I brought him home, where he met my parents and, of course, my stepsister. I didn't notice at the time, but she had been flirting with him right in front of me. I never imagined that he would betray me, and I remained blissfully unaware that sparks were flying between them. I continued to date him and fall even more in love. Nearly a year into our relationship, I decided that I wanted to spend my life with him, so I took a leap of faith and proposed to him. It was unconventional, sure, but I loved him so much that I couldn't wait for him to pop the question. I planned a romantic evening, took him to a fancy restaurant, and worked up the courage to propose. He said he needed time to think about it. I wish he had just broken up with me then and there, but instead, he dragged our relationship on for another 3 months, all while cheating on me with my stepsister. I was devastated that he didn't accept my proposal, but I still hoped that I could change his mind. 3 months later, he finally broke up with me, confessing that he was in love with my stepsister. As if that wasn't painful enough, he also told me that she was 3 months pregnant and they were planning to get married soon. I was hysterical. I confronted my stepsister, and we got into a massive fight. Our parents stepped in, trying to keep the peace, and told me to keep quiet about everything. They were worried about the family's image, especially since my stepdad was somewhat well known. At that point, I was living with them, so I had no choice but to comply. They had a small, simple wedding in our backyard with only close family and friends. I didn't attend, obviously. Instead, I spent the entire week leading up to their wedding in a cheap motel, doing nothing but drinking and eating. It was the lowest point in my life. A few weeks after their wedding, I had finally saved enough money to rent a place of my own and moved out. But that did nothing for my mental health. I spiraled into a deep depression. My days consisted of eating, drinking, and sleeping. I couldn't bring myself to leave my bed, let alone go to work, so I quit my job. The only bright spot in that dark time was my current husband. We had been friends since high school, but I never saw him as anything more than a friend. He was the class clown, always joking around, and I didn't think of him as a romantic option. For weeks after my ex and stepsister's wedding, I isolated myself from everyone. I skipped all my friends' gatherings and ignored calls and messages. I assumed everyone would eventually forget about me, but he didn't. He was the only one who cared enough to find out where I was living, and he showed up at my door. He took care of me during those weeks when I was at my worst. Even though I was rude and tried to push him away, he stayed by my side. He paid my bills when I couldn't, and he helped me get back on my feet. I owe my life to him, and I will always be grateful for his support. Eventually, I opened up to him and told him everything that had happened with my ex and my stepsister. He listened, and he comforted me. We never officially got together, he just moved in with me, and that was that. To this day, we joke that he never actually asked me out. It just happened. Now that my life was finally coming together, I decided it was time for the rest of the family to know the truth about my stepsister and her husband. I discussed my plan with my husband, and he fully supported me. He believed that, after everything they'd put me through, I had every right to expose them. So, a couple of days ago, I invited my entire family over to my house. I made sure to invite my stepsister in the sweetest, most innocent way possible so she wouldn't suspect anything. She completely fell for it. Once everyone had arrived, I started by addressing the rumors that my stepsister had been spreading, specifically, that I had stolen her wedding ideas. I reminded her that she never even had a proper wedding, considering the circumstances under which she got married. Some people laughed awkwardly, others looked uncomfortable, and some were just confused, but I continued. I told her that, since she had made such a big deal about me supposedly stealing her ideas, it was only fair that I reveal what she had actually stolen from me, my boyfriend. My words were met with gasps and shocked expressions, especially from my parents and my ex, who both went red with embarrassment. I explained the entire story, laying out all the details for everyone to hear. The guests looked as though they had just been handed the juiciest piece of gossip on a silver platter. When I was finished, the room fell into a stunned silence. Nobody knew what to say. After what felt like an eternity, my stepsister got up and ran out of the house, with her husband following closely behind. Gradually, the rest of the guests also left, all without saying much. The last to leave were my parents, who were furious. They had the audacity to demand that I apologize to my stepsister for humiliating her in front of everyone. I flat out refused. She had tried to ruin my life more than once, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it this time. My husband backed me up, telling my parents that they had no right to ask me to apologize when they had never once told my stepsister to apologize for everything she had done to me. He also called them out for being terrible parents who never checked on me after I got cheated on. An argument broke out, and I told them to leave my house if they were going to disrespect me and my husband. That was 4 days ago, and I haven't spoken to them since. I know that my family has cut ties with my stepsister, and she's been isolated by everyone. She's miserable because she's always been a social butterfly, and now she can't stand that no one is talking to her. A few hours ago, I received a text from my mom. She said she hoped I was happy now that I had ruined my stepsister's life because, according to her, that's what I had wanted all along. Honestly, I'm fine with whatever happens to my stepsister because I think she deserves it, but my mom's accusation hurt. I thought that, after all these years, she might finally see my side and support me. Instead, I'm left feeling like the villain. It sucks to be painted as the bad guy, so I can't help but wonder, am I the asshole for exposing my stepsister in front of everyone? Update 1 * My mom is still furious with me. She's blaming me for ruining her daughter's life and has even used those exact words to guilt-trip me. For the past few days, she's been texting me, demanding that I tell the rest of the family that I made everything up because I was jealous of my stepsister. She also told me that my stepsister and her husband are upset with me and are considering cutting me off, which makes no sense because we already don't speak to each other outside of public events. The only reason she was even at my wedding was that my mom forced me to invite her so it wouldn't look weird. I have no idea why my mom thinks I owe anyone an apology, but I've decided to ignore her. I was upset for a while that my own mother would take my stepsister's side, but honestly, I'm used to it by now. I talked to my husband about everything, and he thinks the best thing to do is to ignore my mom and let it go, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm done with them. Update 2 * 2 days have passed since my last update, and I've decided to block everyone. Only after doing that did I realize just how much this had been weighing on me. I felt an immense sense of relief once I finally cut them out of my life. I can't believe my mom forced me to pretend to be on good terms with my stepsister for so long just so people wouldn't judge them for being bad parents. They were the ones who failed to make my stepsister a decent person, and yet I was the one who had to suffer for it. Anyway, I blocked them all, thinking that would be the end of it. But last night, my mom showed up at my house, looking incredibly disappointed. I didn't have anything to say to her, so we sat in awkward silence for about 5 minutes before she finally started talking. She told me that my actions had negatively affected the family. I cut her off and told her that, as far as I was concerned, I didn't have a family. After she married my stepdad, it became clear that she preferred my stepsister over me. Everything my stepsister did was forgiven, while I was always held to a different standard. I told her how much she had hurt me over the years and that I wasn't going to apologize or pretend anymore. I was done. She got upset and tried to explain that she distanced herself from me after her separation because I reminded her too much of my dad. That wasn't fair to me. Of course, I reminded her of my dad, but that didn't mean she had to treat me as if I wasn't her daughter. I told her that, while I would try to understand her perspective, I couldn't forgive her easily and needed time. Regardless of our relationship, I made it clear that I wasn't going to apologize to my stepsister or pretend to be sorry for what I did. She left looking sad and disappointed, but that couldn't be helped. A day has passed since then, and although I've unblocked her, we haven't spoken. Update 3 *. It's been a week since I last spoke with my mom, and she hasn't reached out again. I guess she's not sorry, which is fine. I've come to terms with the fact that she prefers my stepsister, and nothing I say or do will change that. Meanwhile, my stepsister hasn't moved on. She's been bad-mouthing me to all our relatives, telling them that her husband cheated on me because I was toxic and he found her company peaceful. She claimed that I used to emotionally manipulate my ex into staying with me whenever he tried to leave and that I pushed him to marry me when he wasn't ready. Of course, none of that is true, but my relatives are now divided. Some believe her because she's a convincing liar. One of my cousins has been keeping me updated on all the lies she's been spreading, and it's infuriating. My mom isn't going to step in, I know that, and I'm not going to ask her to. She wouldn't say anything against her favorite daughter anyway. But I'm not letting this one slide. If my stepsister can stoop so low, then I can go lower. I've blocked her on social media, but I know a lot of her coworkers and friends, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person she really is. It's petty and cruel, and I'm done pretending that I care about her feelings. She never cared about mine. Even my husband thinks that my actions, no matter how mean they seem, are justified. I've been forced to suppress my anger for so long that it was bound to come out eventually. He thinks it's better that it happens now rather than later. So, I've decided to expose what she did to me to every single person who knows her. This time, it won't be pretty. Update 4 *. I did it. I posted everything my stepsister had done to me, with proof. I had screenshots of texts between me and my ex, as well as messages from my stepsister taunting me over the years. I put it all out there yesterday, and my phone has been blowing up ever since. Not only have my relatives been reaching out, but also my stepsister's coworkers and acquaintances. Some of them shared their own bad experiences with her. Apparently, she's known at work for flirting with every guy, regardless of whether they're married. She also treats other women terribly, always saying mean things behind their backs. It turns out she's not just a flirt but also a gossip and a backstabber. My stepsister is furious and has tried to contact me multiple times, creating different accounts to harass me into taking the post down. But I'm not scared of her, and the post is still up. I'm sure she's reporting it, so maybe Facebook will take it down eventually, but I won't delete it myself. My mom is also mad at me. She said she expected me to handle things like an adult, and instead, I acted like a fool. She also said that my stepdad was upset because my actions were affecting his reputation, and they wanted me to apologize and delete the posts. They threatened to cut me off if I didn't comply, which is hilarious because I blocked them first. I don't care whether my stepdad wants me in his life or not. I'll be a little sad if my mom cuts me off, but I've accepted that she loves my stepsister more, and I'm okay with it. As for the inheritance, my husband and I earn enough to support ourselves, and I have the money my dad left me when he passed away. I'm not worried about losing out on anything from my stepdad. Update 5 *. It's been 2 days since I posted everything, and it feels like I've opened Pandora's box. My parents have officially cut me off. When my mom tried to convince me to take down the post, I told her that losing my relationship with them wasn't a big deal since we hardly had one to begin with. That led to a fight, and she ended up blocking me, just as I had blocked her. It hurt, but I expected it. Then, yesterday, I heard from my relatives that my stepsister and her husband are headed for divorce. I was confused about what had changed so suddenly, but after some digging, I found out that one of her male coworkers who saw my post decided to contact her husband. He sent him screenshots of my stepsister flirting with him. Since the coworker is married, he was uncomfortable with her advances. Her husband was furious, and they got into a huge fight. He's filed for divorce and is seeking full custody of their son. I know it's sad for the kid, but I can't help feeling relieved that they're both finally facing consequences for what they did to me. I've cut myself off from the situation, and my stepsister seems to have learned her lesson because she's gone quiet since then. It's crazy how one decision, to expose her, ended up ruining her marriage and possibly her relationship with her son, but I don't feel guilty. She brought this on herself. From what I know, she's moved back in with my parents because she's having trouble at work due to her behavior. She might even quit soon. I'm just relieved that I won't have to deal with her for the foreseeable future. To get away from all this drama, my husband and I have decided to go on our honeymoon this week. We're planning a tour of Europe, and I'm beyond excited. I'm going to put all this nonsense with my stepsister, my parents, and my family out of my mind and focus on enjoying life. Hopefully, when I come back, I'll be a better, freer person with less emotional baggage. Honestly, now that I'm done with my family, I already feel a lot lighter.